Hello, once again, Minot sports fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Minot Sports Podcast. We are here in the 2021 Summer Series, episode 4, and we got another good one for you guys today. I am lucky to be joined by the Souris Valley Sabre Dogs play-by-play voice and 2020 Expedition League Broadcaster of the Year, and also goes to college at Ithaca. Give it up to Max Tanzer. Max, welcome to the program today. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. It's an honor to be here on this show. I've been waiting for this, so thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely, and we're very fortunate to have you on as well. And like I mentioned in the intro, Broadcaster of the Year for the Expedition League. Huge props to you, and we're also very lucky to have you here in town. With the Sabre Dogs, and of course you don't go here yearly, but you're here for the summer. Just kind of tell us, what's your experience been here in Minot these past couple years, even whether it's with the Sabre Dogs or something else here in town.
Yeah, just in general, it's been really special. This has been my first time experiencing the Midwest. I'm originally from Seattle, and of course I go to school in upstate New York, so I've been on both ends of the country, really. And one of the biggest things I wanted to do was experience other parts of the country, just because, getting into the broadcasting industry, I know that, it's really, really tough to find opportunities. So a lot of times you'll have to reach out and go to different parts of the country that, may not be what people dream of, the Big Apple in New York City or Los Angeles, in California. So I really wanted to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and experience new cultures, new parts of the country. And Minot, North Dakota was a great opportunity for that. And I could not be more fortunate for just the opportunities the Sabre Dogs have given me to broadcast every single day. That's truly the most important thing for me the last couple of years, just getting to do it every day. So it's really special, and I love this city. I love this community, and there's a reason why I came back for a second year, because they treated me so well the first year.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head with the opportunity part that we as a society, we got to work. We got to put in the time, the work, the hours. We got to grind it out. And so like you said, any opportunity that may come your way, you may have to take it. And, evaluating your options, of course, is always, kind of trying to keep a healthy balance there too. But yeah, great stuff. Great story. But really just kind of starting it off, what got you into sports, and specifically in baseball, since you are the broadcaster for the Sabre Dogs?
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting because I feel like for a lot of people, they grow up, loving all sports in a family that plays a lot of sports. For me, not a single person in my immediate family plays sports. In fact, really even in my extended family, there's not too much, sports in the blood. It's a lot of Broadway and singing and acting and so forth, which I love too. But I remember when I was 10 years old, I had just moved to Seattle from Long Island. I was born in Seattle, moved to Long Island, then moved back. And my mom signed me up for Little League for one of the local teams. And at the time, I just hated baseball. I abhorred it. And I remember sitting in my bed, third grade, crying, hiding in the top bunk of my bed because I shared it with my twin brother, and saying I did not want to go. There was no way she was going to get me out of that bed. And my mom said she would thank me someday, or that I would thank her someday. And she had told me that about a dozen times, and every single time I was like, no, it never works out. But this one time it did. It was probably the biggest decision of my life, because that's where I really fell in love with baseball that year. Turned on a Mariner game, Mariners versus Reds in 2010. Ichiro hit a home run in the third row, and that just sparked something for me. I don't know what it was, but it changed. It flipped on its head, because I went from hating baseball that year to falling in love with it, taught a lot of it to myself. I really worked hard on trying to become a better baseball player too. And I think that's where that passion really strong, which I feel like is unique, because I didn't have, parents bringing me to a baseball game or anything like that. It sort of just happened on its own, which I think is really, really special. And I love baseball so much. It's my life. So getting to call games every day this summer has been such a treat.
Oh, there you go. And I think really once you find something, and like you said, you saw baseball. Ichiro, he's a pretty big personality in Major League Baseball.
No doubt.
And I know when my dad showed me hockey. Well, I like all sports, but I really liked hockey in the sense that when my dad turned it on for me, I saw it and it's like, oh, I was immediately hooked. Like this is good stuff. And then that kind of got me into these other sports, and then I played in middle school, and obviously I didn't continue along with it, but once you find something, once you find that connection, there's there's gonna have to be a way to stick with it. Is that kind of what you felt with it, I guess?
Absolutely. I always say it was my first love because I absolutely fell for it. It turned into everything for me. Because like before that, I was into like media, which I think is where the broadcasting part came in. I really like was into like movies and directing things and sort of producing things. But then baseball came around. That was the first time I really like was able to attach myself to something. And there's points where I'm sure it's been too extreme because I live and breathe it. But it's I wear it on my sleeve. It's something that every single day I wake up and I think about baseball. I want to talk about baseball, and that's why I feel like broadcasting is just such a special part of my life because I'm not doing it for anything more than the reason just to be able to talk about baseball every day and share my passion with listeners and so forth. That's my goal, is because I feel like I look at baseball in a specific lens, and I think every single person looks at their respective favorite sports teams and their respective favorite sports with their own particular point of view. And I really enjoy sharing my perspective on baseball, what I love about it, the little things, like the context of, oh, this guy's coming up after being in the minor leagues for 10 years, or maybe, his mother grew up in Tampa Bay, now he's getting to make his major league debut in Tampa Bay, whatever it may be, just the random little different angles you could take. That's what really drives me, and I feel like that's what my passion for baseball lives off of. And through broadcasting, you're able to share that perspective and share with people why you love the game, and hopefully you can pass it on to other people as well. And then all of a sudden, when they listen to you, then it sparks a passion for them. That's my goal for any time I'm broadcasting a baseball game, is hopefully I can spark someone else's passion for it.
Yeah, the more you get into it, the more studying you're doing, and then sooner or later, one of these times, you're gonna be up there in big leagues. It's it's on the rise for you, Max. And
oh, thank you. So I have a long way to go, though. I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely, yeah. But like I said, the passion. If we've been saying this a lot, if you have the passion and the drive, it's gonna take off, and you're right there on pat with it. And
thank you. You as well. I respect
you.
what you do a lot. So.
Absolutely, and we're just getting started here, and just kind of, you mentioned broadcaster a lot. What got you started as a young broadcaster? Like, what was the motivation? I guess you may have touched on it a little bit with baseball, but what was the motivation for that?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I've definitely always had sort of a media acting flair in my childhood. As I mentioned, my whole family is big on acting and Broadway and so forth. And I was always big on like movies and like producing different videos. And like my brother, sister, and I would always make like fake movie trailers when I was younger and post them on YouTube. So I always kind of had that sort of artistic background, I feel like, for storytelling. And I feel like I just coped that with baseball. But I remember it was my buddy and I had a really good friend when I was younger. And he wanted to be a broadcaster at first, and I don't want to say I copied it, but like I jumped on the train a little bit because I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. And of course, like any other kid at the age of like 10 or 11.
Of course, no one likes a copycat at that age.
Absolutely. At the age of like 10 or 11, my big dream was to become a Major League Baseball player, and unfortunately, I'm not the biggest kid in the world, so my hopes were put to sleep a little bit in a couple years later, and that's where I really started to focus on broadcasting when I got into high school. I was incredibly fortunate to have a high school radio station where I went to school, so that provided me a lot of opportunities to just get better, experiment with things, and throw myself into the fire. That's a thing I live by, just getting into the booth and, throwing yourself live, and figuring it out. Because I feel like for broadcasting, it's a lot about reps. It's a lot about getting comfortable on the air and feeling, figuring out who you are as a broadcaster and what your personality is and the way that you're able to disseminate information. And through my experiences in high school, I was able to really work through a lot of growing pains and get better. I listen back to a lot of my old stuff all the time. And like, I remember at the time thinking like, this is great. I love it. This feels so good. And I listen back and I'm like, this is like the worst thing I could have ever.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And like, that's just part of the process. Like I'm proud of stuff I do right now. I'm sure 10 years from now, I'll listen back and I'll be like, man, I really thought that was good. Yeah. But that's all part of the process. It's all about getting better and getting yourself the opportunity. One of my favorite analogies to work off of is like when you're in the gym and if there's a huge guy, who's benching 450 pounds,
yep.
Right, and he's looking down condescendingly on some, smaller guy who's lifting 25 pounds. Why are you criticizing him for getting in the gym? He's getting better. At least he's trying to make a change to that. And I feel like it's the same with broadcasting or really anything in life is like no one's going to be great at first. It's all about the reps and the willingness to get in there at 5:30 in the morning every day of the week to try and get reps and to try and get better is the most important thing possible, especially at this age. And anyone who's willing to do that, I think, deserves more opportunities. And that's something that I really lived by, and I see it in you as well. You do it with your podcast here, right? You created this from scratch. And I'm sure at the start it was a little bit tough, but
Oh, yeah.
the more you've done it, the more experience
It's
you've
a
gotten.
journey, folks.
Exactly, and the better you've gotten. And that's something I respect a lot, and I think that shows a lot of people a lot of drive, and you'll be rewarded for that moving forward here. So that's the biggest thing, just having that in high school, to be able to talk about the Mariners every Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and then senior year of high school, I jumped on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 in the morning for a couple hours, which is so much fun, but also an opportunity to get better. Got to broadcast basketball and football games, which was really the biggest challenge because
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, but I'm like a big baseball guy, so I don't know as much about basketball and football, which was
Understood,
always very tough. But like one of my biggest goals was to make myself more versatile and to try and get out of my comfort zone. So that opportunity was really important because that helped me become more of a wider broadcaster, for a lack of a better term. Just being able to cover multiple sports, and it wasn't good. I was not good at it because I didn't know the sports as well. But the opportunity is the most important part, and just trying to work through the growing pains. So I think that's definitely the biggest thing that got me into it, was just having the opportunity to be bad at it, experiment, and learn.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you, because we as a broadcasting department here at Minot State, we do all sorts of things like that, and just the repetitive. Okay, we're gonna do the show, and it's always those production meetings where what do you think we can improve on? What did we do good on? It's all that sort of thing. So you're spot on right there, and I think having that high school radio station, I don't think that shouldn't be anything that's out of the ordinary for most people.
Yeah.
We actually just had Linton High School, the only high school here in the state that has a live radio station, a radio booth where students can talk on there. We just had their students come on, tour our department, and fortunately we got a few of them coming our way, and shout out to you guys. But yeah, I think that helps a lot, and I think more schools should probably embrace that. What do you think? Maybe what are your thoughts on that?
No doubt. I think because even if you're not trying to pursue a career in broadcasting, there's so many aspects to it, whether it is on air, there's a marketing aspect, there's a production aspect, there's a management aspect, and all of that combined, I think, can provide so many opportunities for people. And also, it's fun. It gives people an opportunity to talk about whatever they want. Of course, obviously, FCC regulations and making sure
Gotta
it's
follow
appropriate.
those, yeah.
But if you like gaming, if you like sports, if you like music, if you like theater, whatever it may be, movies, you could literally talk about whatever you want. And how cool is that? And not only does it help you, give an opportunity to put yourself out there and talk about and, actually practice formulating opinions, but it also teaches you how to communicate better, which is definitely a huge skill moving into the workforce. And at the high school level, just to have the opportunity to build on that is definitely something that I think people don't really pay attention to. So high school radio station should be a countrywide thing, in my opinion. And again, I have so many friends who also want to get into broadcasting and are working very hard at it, who didn't have the opportunity to have high school radio stations. So, I was just so lucky and so fortunate to have that. And it definitely has helped me out a lot. And I wish that, everyone around the country could have that opportunity, because it's just so special, not only from a broadcasting standpoint, but just from a learning standpoint as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. The more resources you have, the more that's out there for students for the taking, and being able to grow, experience, some things that they might have an interest in. If something else doesn't work, they always have this or they always have that. And like I've been saying, you're hitting the nail on the head on that one. And talking about the transition from high school to college. So Ithaca College, that's in New York, you said, somewhere Long
Yes.
Island area. Okay. Ithaca College. What is your major exactly? Because I've seen like sports media, I've seen broadcasting. What do you do for your major? Talk about life on Ithaca College.
Yeah, so my major is sports media, and then I'm minoring in journalism and sports studies. So the sports media major is a little bit broader. It's more than just broadcasting, but also a little bit of touch of a journalism, public relations as well, and just also a production standpoint too. I really enjoy it. I actually, compared to high school where I was always struggling with math or science or whatever it may have been, it's a breath of fresh air to come in and actually enjoy what I'm learning. Learning about
Right there with
ESPN,
you,
Fox
yep.
Sports, and just how the industry works. But I think it's definitely a little bit broader. But the biggest thing about Ithaca is the extracurricular opportunities. They're endless, and something big that I was really focusing on when I was looking at colleges was trying to go to a smaller school so that I could get opportunities really early on. Because like there's great schools out there. Syracuse, for me, another one close to home was Washington State University, Arizona, of course, too. And don't get me wrong, tremendous places if you want to become a broadcaster.
Beast programs.
No doubt. But something I really wanted to prioritize was being able to get on the air right out of the gate, and that's something that Ithaca provided for me. I remember we have a TV station and a couple radio stations. I came in and auditioned, and I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to be a sideline reporter for our football games, and that was just huge for me, being able to do that literally within the first month of being there. So that was huge for me. I also, another reason why I went out there, I was looking to play Division III baseball out of high school, so I was looking at smaller schools on the East Coast because I really wanted to go out east because that's a big media market. So I was looking at a bunch of small Division III schools, and Ithaca was one of them. I didn't end up playing, but I really loved the facilities there and just the opportunities they could provide. And I don't regret it one bit. You know, it's been tough with COVID the last couple of years, you know, obviously making it harder to get opportunities in the broadcasting department, but they still have figured it out for us, and they've done a really good job with that. And again, just I can't speak enough to how important and how special it is for me to have been able to get opportunities as a freshman and now a sophomore last year with them on the TV and radio stations.
They always say, at least for athletes in particular coming out of high school, most of them always say D1 or bust. Well, sometimes, you know, you're more likely to bust if you don't get the opportunity to play at like a big school.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, even for all sports, and that applies
and really
even to anywhere.
And to me too, and again, Syracuse, the best broadcasting school in my opinion out there. Amazing. I mean, you look at the alumni, it's endless. Oh yeah, it's endless. So I'm not trying to knock them at all. I think what they do is fantastic, but you know, at the end of the day, I don't think you should particularly be defined about, you know, what school you went to. It's more about what you did with your opportunities and how you've grown, who you are as a person, how your work ethic is as well. And I think, you know, for you too, I think both of us have done a really good job of taking advantage of the opportunities we've had and building something. That's the biggest thing I think that you can, you know, sell about yourself coming out of school is what you were able to make with what you had and what you were able to build for yourself. And again, it's awesome to have a degree that says you're from Syracuse, and there's a lot of great alumni there, and you're definitely working with some of the best professors in the industry in the country. You know, there's endless amount of positives about it, but I wouldn't say, you know, you're
still a college degree, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say you're screwed if you don't go to a big school that though, because a lot of broadcasting is about the opportunities you get, the reps you get, and what you make with them. So, you know, it's even like going to a junior college to play a sport, right? For a lot of the Sabre Dogs, for example, there's a lot of junior college baseball players on there. Of course, they would love to go play at a LSU or a Vanderbilt, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to take the step back, go to a junior college for 2 years, get an opportunity to play every day, and then you'll all of a sudden be recruited for those big D1 schools. And sometimes that's the important thing to do, and sometimes that's the better thing to do. And that's why, you know, I tried my best not to get, you know, too inspired by the big names or by just the name value when I was applying to schools, and more of what opportunities they could provide to put me in the best spot, to send me out of college in a good spot to get a decent career.
Absolutely. And I'm sure at least one of my professors will catch up to this, but he points out a good example in the past. So he does a radio series, and he goes and talks. He goes to Minnesota Vikings training camp and Minnesota Twins spring training, and he talks to all the PR people, kind of gets set up talking. He talks to a lot of those players and athletes, and he knows that there are a lot of media people out there that the one thing in common with them is that they all have a college degree. And, you know, some, of course, they're probably going to be at some of the bigger colleges, but some probably are the smaller ones that some of the smaller colleges that some of them went to, it's still that same college degree. And so I think what you're saying there, again, spot on, and really just all about looking for that opportunity. And I guess what other opportunities have you found yourself in, and, you know, at Ithaca College, you know, in particular with the athletic department, you know, what's that like up there?
For sure. I think the athletic department aspect of it's really, really important to the broadcasting side of it because you have so much access. It's very hands-on. Another positive about going to a smaller school compared to a D1 is just the opportunities you have to cover the sports, right? Because if you're going to a big D1, you have all the big networks coming down, to cover Syracuse basketball or LSU baseball, whatever it may be. So your opportunities as a student might be a little bit more limited. But at Ithaca, the athletics department is very open. And they're right in communication with ICTV, Ithaca College Television, and both of our radio stations, which is really, really cool because we're the only people that get to cover those games. So we get to broadcast baseball games, we get to cover football, basketball, all the sports through a journalistic perspective as well as a TV and radio perspective as well, which I think is really, really special and something that definitely I hope we don't take for granted. I won't take for granted because that is the most important thing. As I said earlier, throwing yourself in the fire and getting that experience, working with players, working with coaches, which is another thing that's been really, really big with me, working with the Sabre Dogs as well.
Make those connections.
Absolutely. And just learning, how it is to, interview a coach, a head coach after a really tough loss where they maybe blew a 10-point lead in a basketball game in the final 5 minutes, right? Or talking to a pitcher after maybe he suffered a really devastating injury, right? It's easy to interview someone after a big win, after they've set themselves to the NCAA playoffs or something like that. But the hardest moments are after the big losses, after the heartbreaking moments. And to get that opportunity that simulates really the hardest, situations to deal with as a reporter, as a broadcaster, or anyone in the media is invaluable for sure.
Absolutely. And so, for talking athletics with Ithaca, all those opportunities again. And I'm just kind of refreshing a little bit here. For all the Minot citizens, they know you just as the play-by-play voice for the Sabre Dogs. Let's try and get them more used to you. What are some things, or what are some favorite moments that you've had at Ithaca? What are some of your? Do you recall some big moments like talking live on air or doing stuff with certain athletes? Like what are some things, what are some fun projects that you've done, outside of Minot?
Yeah, at Ithaca, I think the biggest one for me was getting to cover what they call the Cortica Jug, which they call it the biggest, smallest rivalry in the country between Ithaca College and SUNY Cortland. Both D3 schools, of course. And my freshman year, I had perfect timing here. They actually played in MetLife Stadium, which is, of course, the home of the Jets and the Giants. And we broke the Division III attendance record in that game with something around 47,000 fans. So the entire school was packed, a lot of alumni as well. I was really lucky because I got to cover that game on the sidelines, and that was one of the coolest experiences of my life because not only was I on, a football field, where Eli Manning and so forth played, but I'm also covering a game with 47,000 people. You could feel the energy on the turf bouncing off of the facades of the second and third decks. And just being a freshman that year and covering arguably the biggest game in Ithaca College history was really, really impressive. Special. And I can't thank, the people who gave me that opportunity, my producers for Bombers Live, which was the show, enough for giving me that opportunity as a freshman in college. Because if you were to tell me I got to cover that game 2 months before that, because that was in November, if you told me that when I was entering Ithaca, I would have told you were crazy because I had never been on TV before, never really covered football intensely before. So that was really special. That was definitely the biggest one that jumps out. But I also produced a TV show last semester called Sports Final. It was a live show at 7 o'clock on every Sunday. Nice. That was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in college for sure because I'd done a lot of on-air stuff. In high school, I did a lot of radio stuff, and that had some production stuff in it. But being a producer for a live show and not really having that experience because COVID happened, so we were online for the semester before that, so I didn't really get trained in it. I had no experience coming into it. It was a lot, not only from the TV side of it, trying to figure out what segments, what we were going to do, and communicating with athletes to try and get them on, but also just managing a bunch of people and so forth. So much stuff went into that. It was definitely a grind. I'm glad I went through it, though, because I learned so much about the behind-the-scenes aspect of it, too. And, it was definitely tough, and there were moments where I was incredibly stressed out, but I don't regret it because, again, threw myself in the fire, we figured it out, and we learned a lot.
Yeah, going back to the biggest game you were saying about, the Ithaca College history, reporting on the sidelines of MetLife Stadium. Like you said, a bunch of famous athletes played there. Like, you treasure that, you hold on to that. And that's a lesson for anyone listening here. That's, you hold on to that, because that's going to be, a nice, kind of like a nice little gold star to your resume. And, so that's awesome. Great
Thank
stuff
you.
there, Max. Yeah,
It was special for sure, and like I will never forget that, because I've been to a lot of Mariners games, I've been to Seahawks games, but like being there suited up on the sidelines with a press pass around my neck and just feeling the buzz in the air, that was
you feel
nothing
like
I've
you're
experienced
unstoppable.
before. Yeah, and I felt like that was one of those moments you're like, wow, I actually made it. And again, I was a freshman in college, I was just a sideline reporter, so it wasn't anything too big compared to the play-by-play guys or anything like that. But I'm so thankful for it, because that sparked my passion even more, and it was something where it's like I got a little taste of what could happen, and now I want to get back to that so badly.
Absolutely. And you're on your way there, and already now. And let's take it from the college days to now in the summer. The moment that the Sabre Dogs the first ever time the Sabre Dogs reached out to you. Take us through that moment.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one, because I was a freshman in college. It had to be around November-ish, October, November, and I was just looking for opportunities to broadcast somewhere. Broadcasting baseball has always been my dream. I never gotten the opportunity to call a game ever in my life, because I was always playing baseball in high school, and that was one of the big reasons why I decided not to play baseball at Ithaca College too, was because I wanted to have the opportunity to broadcast baseball. So I applied to all the teams in the Expedition League, a couple other teams around the country as well. Sabre Dogs responded to me about a day later, which was like that got me very excited. And I had a call with our assistant GM, Brett, and we got along very well, and we still do. And I took it, about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, just because I knew it was like a great opportunity. I was going to be able to broadcast at the time 64 games. Unfortunately, it was shortened to 52.
That was a tough spot for you right there. Yeah,
but either way,
season.
Either way, though, 50-plus games is so impactful. And I was getting the opportunity to go out to a place I'd never been before, and I knew I was going to be able to gain some really big experiences. So my buddy also at Ithaca College was set to broadcast for the Pure Trappers, so we were both excited to be in the same league, and that was our first opportunity to broadcast summer baseball. So it really was perfect, and I did jump on the gun pretty quickly. But I was fine with that, because, I'm very happy with where I am right now. And
it worked out in the end.
Met a lot of great people. And, again, the opportunity to broadcast baseball every day is so important to me. So, and that's the biggest thing, and that's what they provided for me.
Talk about that experience going through, stadium by stadium, going to different places, on a daily basis, rarely ever getting days off. What's that like for you? And what kind of... seeing all the nice ballparks too. What's all that like for you in as a broadcaster?
Oh, it's really cool, and I think that's one of the special parts of it, because what's really cool about the Expedition League is it simulates minor league baseball. You're on the road for long periods of time. We just got back from like a 11-day road trip, for the All-Stars. They haven't been back since like July 8th, I want to say, somewhere in that vicinity. But either way, yeah, getting to go through Nebraska, Wyoming. Where else do we go? We haven't gone to Montana or Idaho, but there were potential opportunities to go there because there are teams there. But just getting to experience the Midwest was really cool, and kind of feeling what it's like to be a minor league baseball player and potentially a professional broadcaster, sitting on the bus for 15-hour trips, showing and going, and then bouncing around the country. Was definitely surreal and a really fun experience. And it's hard, man. It's really hard. Something that I really didn't think about coming in last year, and this year too I really learned a lot about, is just the mental grind it is, and how you have to keep your head forward and just keep pushing through, because when you're doing it every day, you're going to get worn down, you're going to get tired. I miss my friends here a lot when I'm on the road. The interns here I've gotten incredibly close with, and I love all of them to death, and it's hard to leave them. It is hard.
Oh yeah.
I miss them when I'm on the road. I miss my family when I'm on the road, but that's all part of the process. You have to be able to push through it. And I know that if I can't get through this, I will never be able to get through minor league baseball or even independent league baseball, because that's an even more rigorous schedule. That's more travel. That's also going to be far away from home. And that's why this is just so important for me to be able to push through, especially at a younger age, because it's helping me gain that experience that hopefully will give me a little bit more of an edge as I move forward and graduate college.
Absolutely, and at times it will also pay off too, because of course, there are kind of the negative things to that, but also I'm not sure if we touched on this quite yet. I had it in the intro, but it ended up being a good thing for you because you ended up getting the Expedition League Broadcaster of the Year last season. Talk about your reaction to that, and how much has that paid off for you, and even to get another shiny piece to the resume.
That was really special, and it's really an honor, especially knowing the other broadcasters in the league last year. All of them are very good, very experienced, and to be honest with you, I think they deserved the award as well. But I remember I was at home in Seattle, and Brett, our assistant GM, called me, gave me the news, and that was just really special because that was my first year broadcasting baseball ever, and it was a nice boost of confidence to know that people are enjoying, listening to me, because it's a lot. You're putting yourself out there, and you're, sharing your personality with a bunch of people, and it's means a lot that people appreciate that and actually enjoy listening to me for 3-4 hours every night. But I think the biggest thing is the experience. The award is really special, and it's definitely something that means a lot to me. But the most important thing is just meeting the people I have here, gaining the life experience, and getting better as a broadcaster. Because me from game number 1 to, I think I'm at about game 110 as a Sabre Dogs broadcaster now, but me from game 1 to whatever we are at right now, I'm a completely different broadcaster, and I've been able to work on a lot of stuff, and I still have a long way to go. I still have a ton to improve on, and that's the beauty of it. I get to do it every day. I get to work on something new every day. If I have a bad day, which has happened several times this year, can't tell you how many times I've walked out of that booth feeling terrible about it. The beauty of it is less than 24 hours to get an opportunity to jump on again. And that is the beauty of baseball right there. You're playing every day. And, it's the same thing for a player. You go 0-for-4 with 3 strikeouts. It stinks, but you get an opportunity the next day to go 3-for-4 with 4 RBIs or whatever it may be.
3 home runs or something like that. Yeah, you never know. Like that, who was that one White Sox player? I'm blanking on his name.
Zamara or something like that. Yeah, he hit 3 home runs, the first ever to hit his first 3 home runs
I don't
in
know
one
if
game.
he went something like 1 for 50 beforehand, and things can change in a hurry. But yeah, like you said, that's a great piece again to the resume. Broadcaster of the Year, also going through the day-to-day life as a broadcaster. Take us through. We'll get to the interns a little bit here, but take us through. The game day of a Sabre Dogs broadcaster or an Expedition League broadcaster in general, like you. What's a game day feel like?
Man, it definitely fluctuates, especially when I'm on the road or at home. At home, it's a lot more work because we have to get to the ballpark early. And again, the beauty about summer baseball here is we all play more of a role than just what our job description says. And I think it's the same for any summer team around the league and probably minor league teams around the country as well. We have to – I'm not just coming out to broadcast baseball. I'm coming out to help set up tents, set up the ballpark, get everything ready, help out the other interns, and they would do the same for me. I know that. So it's definitely probably get to the ballpark at 11, help set things up. I'll definitely get my scorebook ready, put in some stats, put in some storylines, do some research on the other team as well. Ballard and I, our producer, will go through some talking points too. We'll always be looking for things to improve on as well. We take a lot of pride in it. Ballard's just fantastic. He's done a tremendous job this year. And him and I work really well together, which is definitely a huge part of, the fun that I've had this summer with the Sabre Dogs. But, yeah, I think it changes a lot, but a lot of it just has to do with the pregame routine, trying to research, trying to get myself ready, because baseball is different than basketball. It's different than hockey. Football, you can argue a little bit. It may slide to the baseball side. But most sports, you don't have to prepare as much because the play on the field or the court, whatever it may be, does the talking for you. But in baseball, there's so much dead time that you really have to fill in the gaps with storylines and so forth. And a lot of that comes with just getting to know the players, finding a unique stat, talking about whatever it may be. And sometimes that's really hard. It might be a 20-2 lead for the Sabre Dogs, which it seems like that happens every other night with the offensive production the Sabre Dogs have put together the last couple of months. And that's hard. That's the biggest challenge. And I like it when that happens because it forces me to try and have to come up with something to talk about. And sometimes that is really, really hard. Ballard and I have gotten creative with it. We've been rating pizza, from the concession stands at some points.
I've seen you guys bring players up in the press box.
Oh, yeah, we had Steven Moretto rate a hot dog. It's tough. You got to get creative with it. That's when we're desperate. If we have nothing to talk about, we resort to the pizza or the hot dogs. But sometimes, it's just I definitely think that what benefits me is I'm just a baseball nut. So I can, I don't know. I could just look at someone's, socks. The other day I saw – I forget who it was. I think it was Ethan Moore who was wearing his socks above his knees. And I was able to talk about Hunter Pence used to always wear his socks like that. Ronald Guzman does it as well. And, that's a unique style. Yeah, and it's just you have to take the little things and try to expand into something greater. I remember a really fun moment earlier this year. The interns were texting me what were they? It was something about Santa. It was like Santa's sleigh is coming tonight. They were work that into the broadcast. We were in Casper. So I started talking about how Mike Lansing Field, where the Casper Horseheads play, used to be the home of the Casper Goats, who are a minor league baseball team affiliated with the Rockies, now the Grand Junction Rockies in the Pioneer League or something like that. So I turned the Casper Goats minor league baseball team, started talking about that because that's the ballpark we were playing in that night. Started talking about baseball and Halloween and how the World Series every once in a while you'll get into Halloween. Then was able to spin it towards Christmas because that's a holiday. And then was able to work in Santa's sleigh is coming tonight or whatever it is. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, obviously, it's hard to work that into a baseball game. It's
creative.
But we got it in there, and that was fun because that was a blowout. I think that was a 23-2 Sabre Dogs win or something like that.
Ethan Moore hits a grand slam. Santa's sleigh is coming tonight.
I might have to use that tomorrow when we get back into play tomorrow. The Horseheads are coming to town tomorrow. It's perfect. All right.
Let's go.
Santa's got a sleigh tonight. But either way, just trying to be creative and get the creative juices flowing. And again, I try not to do that too often because I don't want to say it's unprofessional, but it's definitely a little goofy. I tend to only do that stuff if it's a 15-run margin or something like that, and the game's very slow and very tough to swallow. There's not as much action and it's not moving as fast. But that's what's fun about it, and that's what's the beauty of baseball is you're telling a story, right? Think about it like a movie you're watching. You have that slow build up until you get to the climax, and then it slowly falls off.
Resolution, yep.
Absolutely. With baseball, it's similar because, if you ever go to a baseball game, the intensity in the first 6 innings is not the same as it's going to be in the final back third of that ball game. So first through 6th inning, you're building this narrative. A lot of times it'll fluctuate. You'll go back and forth, but it really doesn't get to the good part until you're in the 7th, 8th, or 9th innings, and let's hope it's a close one, right?
That could take a long time, too.
Absolutely.
The first 6 innings might take an hour, and then the last 3 could be,
That seems to be the case this year as well in the
Expedition
Expedition League because these games have been long. They've been very long. By the way, you have that rising action. You have the context. You're supposed to paint that picture, which is what makes the back 3 of those, or the back third of that ball game so interesting, right? They always say, why don't they shorten basketball games to just 1 quarter because the final quarter of the game is always the most important part or the most interesting part. It's only interesting because of the first 3 quarters or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The first half of that game. It's not the same if you just throw them out there for 5 minutes. It's the same with baseball. You can't just play a 3-inning game. The reason why it's so intense in the 8th inning is because you've seen this entire narrative develop. And that's why as a broadcaster, you have to paint that narrative. And then you get into the back third of that ball game. And then it starts to get intense. And that's always the fun part. And we've had a lot of great.
A big reason why we watch sports is because we don't know the results of the game.
Absolutely.
If we knew them, it would just be spoiled. But yeah, once again, Max, that's great description of just kind of some of the things that as maybe just some a general idea of people that probably aren't into sports much, trying to get used to it. Yeah, that's some good insight there, and really just talking about your. Just reflecting on the game day as a broadcaster, what's it like, putting all that work in, and what else is it like, to work with the other interns? You mentioned Ballard, and because he's doing the production side of things. There's been a lot of turnover with the interns from last year to this year. What's it like to work with, different interns from the year-to-year basis this past season? Just kind of tell us, what's that work like? Do they, of course, they try to be creative with it, which is that I think that's awesome. By the way, I've seen the comments; they've been great all about you. But just kind of tell us, have they tried to incorporate any more type of work with you? What's it like working exactly with the interns?
The interns are the best part of the job, in my opinion. I think that the support for each other is the biggest thing. We're all like siblings. I mean, we spend every day with each other, basically, right? We're working with each other from, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day. And even after that, we still spend time with each other. And I think the bond and the relationships and the connections we've been able to make is definitely going to be the hardest part when I leave this summer. And, with Ballard, of course, working with him on air, we work so well together in the moment, but it's also outside of the games as well. We get along very well. And I think that's why we're able to bond and be able to get so much work done. So much, in my opinion, I think we've done great work together this year. And I think a big part of that is because of the bond we've been able to make, but even like everyone else too, everyone has their own jobs, but it's like we're working together here. It's one team thing. Like Hannah and Maggie do the on-field stuff. We're always talking to each other about it. We always support each other, always come down after the games, ask each other how it went. Rebecca and Trent working in the concessions and so forth. Their work goes unnoticed. Both of them work super hard, do a tremendous job, and we couldn't, be able to run a baseball game at Corbett Field without them. And again, talking to them and, making sure, that they're doing all right and so forth. Just having each other's backs, I think. I think we all really care for each other a lot. And that's the most special thing. Jeremy up there scoring the games and so forth, too. We'll talk about, decisions on what call was right or wrong or so forth. And, we don't always agree, but that's okay, because we're bouncing off each other. We're learning.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the most special thing. I love all the interns to death, and I'm going to miss them a lot. And I think when you work with a group of people that much, it feels like we've been working together for 2 months, I think, like May 20-ish. Now we'll wrap up around August 15th. Feels like we've been working together for like 3 or 4 years. That's how tightly knitted we are. And I think that motivates us, to come to the ballpark every day. It makes it fun, too, because it's nice when you're working with people that you're friends with, too. If we weren't friends, this would be very, very hard. But we all love each other.
Easy to work with great people.
Absolutely. And I think and it builds a good culture. And I think between us interns, we really, really have that. So definitely, they're the most fun part of the job for me.
It's also about having a good time, too. I know we here in Minot just getting done with the North Dakota State Fair, a week and an extra day. I know I wasn't there at the concert, but I saw you, hanging out with some of the interns, going to the concerts, just having a good time, Sometimes that's all it takes, and it applies to sports and teams and athletes, too. Like, if you're just grumpy and not as exciting off the field or court or rink or arena, wherever you play at, that's you're just going to be miserable. So I think, that helps a lot to have, that, like you said, that culture with the interns. And, big shout out to them too.
No doubt.
Hopefully we can get more on the pod here.
Absolutely.
We just had Jeremy, talking about stats and, what are some things he looks at.
Get Madison on here to talk about the social media. Madison does really good stuff.
Oh,
her social media is fantastic. She's good.
The graphics she puts out there is like, man, I couldn't get close to that. But I mean, I know when I'm working on, I know when I'm trying to see, kind of, evaluate, that she's got some good stuff out there, and I'm trying to see, how can I do this? How can I do that? And it's like, she does a great job with that. Might have to do, any sort of collaboration, maybe, just kind of share some ideas, share the wealth, well, not necessarily graphics or not trying to steal anything, but, just share some ideas.
Absolutely. And, just like, what you're, because I feel like everyone has their own style. I was literally watching her make a graphic today in the office, just for 30 minutes.
She's good at it.
I was mesmerized. She's fantastic. And like, I see her like putting in these different little elements. And like, what is she going to use that for? I think it was like a piece of tape or something like that. I was like, how is she going to implement a piece of tape into this graphic? And it looks so good. I can't even explain it. It's not out yet. You guys will probably see it on the social media at some point. But she made it look like a sticker that was taped to almost like a different texture. And it looked really cool. And I feel like that creativity is a really important part of a job like that. And she has that going. It's definitely really fun working with her too. And really everyone. I feel like we're all in a really good spot, and we all work very hard, and we're all very passionate about what we do. And I feel like that's the key to success, in a business like this.
Absolutely. And just kind of a few more things here. What are some things, you kind of touched on this already, but what are some things, people, it's easy to say, someone can, you call the game and you're just done. You take a few notes here, point this out, point that out, yada, yada, yada. It's easy to do that. What are some other things that people may not know about what are some things you like to point out as a broadcaster? What are some things that you notice from a broadcasting standpoint that other people might not get?
That's a really good question. That's tough. I think the thing that I try to challenge myself with is sort of, you're going to get me on a big tangent here. I'm passionate about this one.
Oh boy.
But
Buckle up.
yeah, buckle up. That's what I told Declan Buckle his podcast name should be.
Nice.
But no, I think the biggest thing for me is trying to go deeper than just the numbers or just your basic, oh, he goes to college here, he played volleyball in high school, but now is playing baseball. What are you going to do that's going to make the viewer or the listener connect to them? And I call it like the American Idol effect. Because in American Idol, you can always tell who's going to move on because they play that little package right before they come on, and it tells like the story about their life. Maybe someone close to them died, they suffered a huge injury or something like that. Whatever it may be, they try to paint the picture and give you their backstory so you connect to them more. So all of a sudden, when you see them walk onto that stage, you feel like you know them, you feel like you've connected with them, and all of a sudden you're rooting for them more, and it incentivizes you to watch more. And I feel like with sports, particularly baseball, you need that more. The Olympics do a really good job of it if you watch them now.
Oh, yeah.
The Super Bowl, they do a good job. They sit down with the quarterback and give you his life story.
Yep.
Baseball's starting to get there, and I think why baseball struggles with, connecting to the fans is because it's not an individualized sport.
It's a good topic, yeah. Keep
no doubt.
going,
It's
yeah.
not an individualized sport like basketball or football, where in football, like, you could watch the Super Bowl and, like, really all you need to know is Tom Brady and, a couple of the other guys, right?
It's a quarterback-driven league.
No
yeah,
doubt.
absolutely.
In the NBA Finals, all you need to know is
superstars,
Giannis.
yep.
Exactly, right? And you can, you could still enjoy it a lot more if you know the other players and their stories. But as long as they drive that one player, which is fairly easy in those sports, it should be fine for a casual fan to enjoy the product. For baseball, whoever it may be, let's say Mike Trout, for example, the best player in baseball, maybe not right now anymore with Tatis and Ohtani and so forth, but Mike Trout for the past 5 years, I think it's fair to say, has been the best player in baseball. No one knows him. And even if baseball did market him better, he only hits 4 times a game, right? He'll make maybe 5 or 6 catches in the outfield. And that's fine. That's how baseball is. You can't really change that. But what's going to separate that is if you can market that individual player and his personality, which they've done a really good job with Fernando Tatis and so forth. Because all of a sudden, if you give the backstory about where this person has come from, what they've gone through to get to this moment, in a lot of cases with athletes, it's something really deep and something really special. All of a sudden, you feel like you know that player, you feel connected to that player, you feel sympathy for them. One of my favorites, and rest in peace, Jose Fernandez, but his journey from Cuba to America, on the boat, hearing that someone fell off of the boat, did not know who it was, jumped in to save them. It happened to be his mother. He, not knowing who it was, jumped into the water to save that person because he's a good human being.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened to be his mother. You hear that story, all of a sudden, you love Jose Fernandez that much more. And it was devastating, unfortunately, when he passed away.
Their character, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what creates a bond between a fan and a player without them actually meeting. And that's why you need that more. And that's why, as a broadcaster, I feel like a big part of my job, at least, the way I approach it, is being able to create that bond, create that connection between the fan and the player. And it's harder with college kids, of course, because, I have 2 months to learn about them, and I'm not going to share all this personal information about them. But at the same time, trying to put the fan or the listener or the viewer in their shoes, why this might be important. One of my, one that just off the top of my head, Jackson Kirkpatrick, who has been just tremendous out of the bullpen for the Sabre Dogs the last couple of weeks.
Good player.
Really struggled at the beginning of the year. Really did. Was struggling with his command and so forth. I remember a game he came in against the Trappers probably a month and a half ago. Didn't record it out. I think he walked 5 straight batters, almost blew the save for the Sabre Dogs. It was Daniel Sharon who came into the game, induced a game-ending double play to win it. I remember he had a second time to face the Trappers. Dominated, closed the ball game out, a big one. And again, you could look at that second opportunity. It's just him closing out the game, picking up or helping secure the win for the Sabre Dogs.
As a segue for the next time he comes on.
Yeah, but you could go deeper than that and say, hey, this is a second chance for Kirkpatrick. He had been dominating the previous 4 or 5 outings. Now he has to face the Trappers one more time. It's almost proved to himself that this is for real. And he does get that opportunity. He succeeds, dominates, and that's almost the catalyst that sets him off to be a very productive closer for the rest of the season for Souris Valley. Aaron Zuval, similar case as well, struggled a little bit early on, but has been lights out the last couple of weeks. And those little stories, the sort of angle you take on that, just makes it a little bit more dramatic. Sure, it's cheesy. I'll be the first to admit it. It is incredibly cheesy. But when you're listening to that, I'd hope, the fans, it would make them more interested. It'd make them more enticed to all of a sudden root for this college pitcher that they've probably never met in their life, right? This is no Major League Baseball player. These are college kids who are trying to, get on their way
Takes
to play
some time
professional
to get used
baseball.
to names.
But what's so special, I think, about it is that these opportunities mean so much to these players because a lot of them are at JUCOs, a lot of them are in the portal right now, and are almost auditioning for different schools to try and get another opportunity, especially having after lost their COVID or their seasons due to COVID in the past. So this means a lot to them, and I feel like it's my job to portray that and portray how much it means to these players and the significance of these moments to their careers. I think that'll make it more interesting for people who are listening in general, because all of a sudden it actually means something. It's not just a random summer baseball game with just random players that you'll never, think of again. These are guys that you're rooting for that hopefully the fans will want to follow moving forward. Bo McClintock and Aaron Kern now playing professional independent league baseball.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Those are big names from last year. Of course, Kern, a Minot State product. Those are fan favorites from the last couple years. Guys that
Kern
fans
was
rooted
a great pitcher, and McClintock, he had the bat. He was phenomenal.
No doubt about that. But I think it's even more special for people here in Minot to follow those two guys because they connected with them. If they didn't, if they were just some random players, it's like, oh, cool, former Sabre Dogs now playing professional baseball. But all of a sudden, I can guarantee you they're rooting for them more because they feel like they know them. McClintock obviously played a couple years with Souris Valley, so he got to know the community well. And then Kern obviously playing for Minot State really built that connection with the city as well. All those things combined, I think, just to sum it up, I know I went on a huge tangent all over the place right there.
Oh, you're good. Keep going.
But having the fans or helping the fans connect to the players on more of a emotional level than just, watching a player on TV, I think is the most important. That's my favorite thing about broadcasting is piecing together the little things. I remember when I was younger, I used to make a lot of videos, baseball videos, and I still have them and I watch them all the time just because it brings back memories. But I would always make these videos. They were always very dramatic. They were always very cinematic and movie themed.
Ooh, interesting.
But I would always make them based on I would try to frame them around the little things that I found in the game. Whether it be, I remember one I made about the 2014 Mariners, which was the first team I really fell in love with. And that was the first time the Mariners actually were pushing for a playoff spot. I remember going to game 161, 2014. And this was huge because the Mariners had to win. The A's had to lose for the Mariners to stay alive. And I remember one inning, it was the sixth inning, where Kyle Seager almost tied the game with a home run down the right field line. It hooked foul. 2 seconds later, the Rangers beat the A's to keep the Mariners' hopes alive. 30 seconds later, Logan Morrison ties the game with a double, 1-1. Going to extra innings, the Mariners win it. To me, that was the most incredible thing of all time. To a lot of people, they probably have forgotten about it. But I was able to make that video, paint it through my lens, exactly how I experienced it, put it in the exact order.
Remember it.
Yeah. And, well, they didn't make the playoffs that year, so I'm sure a lot have forgotten. But either way, I was able to make that video based on the way I lived through it. And I remember I always loved showing my mom because I always wanted her to, see it through my eyes. And she was the sweetest because she would always pretend like it was the greatest thing, and I'm sure she didn't care. But either way, that is why I loved making those videos, and that's why I love broadcasting, because I can do the exact same thing. I can paint the picture of the game through my eyes, hopefully sparking passion for other people watching.
Absolutely. Well, kids, that's some great advice there from Max Tanzer. All you need is a mic, soundboard, headphones, voice. You're good to go. No, I'm just
Absolutely.
kidding.
I'm
kidding.
But I'm saying
there's way more to it.
That's the start, though. That's the start.
That's a good start. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a big person on just taking what you have and building from it. So if it means that you have to sit in front of a screen, watch a baseball game on TV and mute it, and record into your voice memos app on your iPhone, that's okay. Because that's what I did. That's what I did throughout my entire high school life before I went to the Sabre Dogs. And, it was important to me. And I think it did make me better. It doesn't matter if you have the nicest quality mic in the world or if you're using your iPhone, as long as you're getting those reps.
Absolutely. Well said there, Max. Hopefully you guys found some great insight from that. But moving on from the Sabre Dogs now, kind of the last bit here of the show, we're going to talk Seattle Pro Sports. You're a big Seattle fan, and we'll start the Kraken. I saw you with that Kraken hat early in the baseball season. and of course, their expansion team in the National Hockey League, brand new. Talk about the hype? How you feeling about the Kraken? They just had the expansion draft, the NHL draft, and I know maybe not too much into hockey as compared to baseball, but what's the feeling like with the new expansion team?
It's exciting, and I'm definitely using this as an opportunity to get more into hockey. I think Seattle's a great city for hockey in general, just because of how passionate our fan base is, and you could tell. I mean, looking at this expansion draft, I wanted to be there so bad. It looked like a beautiful day, one, but two, you could see the city rallying behind it. Definitely very excited for it. I think everyone is excited for the upcoming season and so forth, because it's a city that really wears its heart on its sleeve. There's a lot of pride, even though the Mariners haven't been good for a while, even though the Seahawks had a real tough run for a long time. Obviously, 2010s was just fantastic for the Seahawks, and that's where the fan base really came to life. But the thing that people don't realize is that that's always been breeded in the heart of Seattle. And sports are so important, and I think that the opportunity to get a hockey team is really special. First since the Metropolitans, first team to win a Stanley Cup, I believe, if I'm correct on that one. But I can't wait. You can feel a buzz. I love the name. I love the logo. I love the colors. I remember actually in high school, I would always talk on my radio show with my friend who's a huge hockey fan. We always would talk about the names. He wanted the, what did he want? The totems, I think? Something like that.
The totems, yeah. I think that was one of the few names on the list.
I was big on Kraken from the start, though. So I call myself an OG Kraken fan. But either way, I got to get
day one.
I got to get research in on hockey, so I'll get there. It's a great excuse to get into it because I think that the city will fall in love with it, and I think it'll be a really good hockey city.
Yep, not to be biased for any sports, but I think I like to follow hockey the most. I mean,
you got to teach me about it.
That my dad, we were at my grandma's place once, and he just turned on the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, my parents are big Avs fans, and I was actually born in Denver, so that's kind of my connection to Denver sports. I'm a big Avs fan, and just watched one day, and I got hooked into it. I never played it because I was kind of already entering my teenage years, but I got hooked into it right away, and kind of sucked for me that, and of course for all the other fans and the other teams, that they had to lose a player. But I think the Kraken got a good one with Jonas Donskoy, a big utility knife, Swiss Army knife type player, and good selection there, and of course getting a good player at number 2 overall in the draft. Moving on, now you're in your ballpark, no pun intended, with baseball. The Mariners, how are they looking right now? Just kind of give us an outlook.
Man, it's been a roller coaster ride the last week or so for the Mariners, I'll tell you that. So I have been following this rebuild very intensely. Of course, I definitely pride myself on being a very big Mariners fan. Last week, they had a huge win against the Astros. Dylan Moore, a go-ahead grand slam in the bottom of the 8th inning. At that point, I think that was the biggest win I had seen for the Mariners probably since 2018 when they won 89 games. So I was riding high. I think the whole fan base was riding high. And that's where we saw the turn from, all right, we're rebuilding, to the fan base saying, all right, let's go for this. Let's go for a wild card spot right now, because at one point we were just a game back. And then, of course, the next day they trade Kendall Graveman to the Astros, and the entire Mariners clubhouse is livid with Jerry Dipoto, because Graveman had just been such a key element to not only the development of the younger players on the team, but the culture on that ball club. It was sad to see him go. I think from a baseball standpoint, it's actually a great trade. You're sacrificing probably 20 more innings from Kendall Graveman while you still have one of the best bullpens in baseball, in exchange for Abraham Toro, who is definitely a breakout candidate, a former top prospect. You'll have control of him through 2025, and he's been raking ever since he came up, I think 9 for 18 or something like that since he came over to Seattle. So I think that'll be a good move in the long run. I think, especially since Graveman's a free agent at the end of the year, it's just the timing that's bad. Obviously, the chemistry had been at an all-time high. You'd picked up your biggest win in over 2 years, and then you trade Graveman to the team you just beat, and the team that you're behind, who happens to be one of the most beloved players, is tough. But they went out and got Diego Castillo, who did blow a save the other night, which was a tough look, but has still been one of the best right-hander relievers in baseball over the last 2 years, and they'll have control over him for a few more seasons as well. So really, at the end of the day, he traded Graveman, Chargois, Austin Shenton, who's a decent third base prospect, in exchange for Diego Castillo, a very top-tier reliever, and Abraham Toro. an infielder, which is a spot they've needed to fill, that'll have control over 2025, that has the chance to blossom into a very, very productive player. So from a trade standpoint, I do think it's a good one for the Mariners. It's just the timing that was terrible. But either way, I think people are jumping on the train a little bit too quick here, and I knew it was going to happen. The Mariners are doing very well, of course, right now. 6 games above 500 as we speak, I believe, at this point. Have a huge series coming up against Tampa. We'll be playing in New York as well, and the Blue Jays.
That'll be a big test.
All teams that are in the wild card race right now. But you got to remember that coming into this year, what were the expectations for the Mariners? That they're rebuilding. They're probably going to finish in 4th or 5th place, and that was fine with everyone.
They may speed up.
But all of a sudden, the Mariners show some life, show what they're capable of, and people start to jump on the train a little bit, which is fine. I think it's fun like that. But at the same time, you got to keep perspective here. The Mariners are still at the back end of that rebuilding process. You have your farm system, which has been developed into one of the best in Major League Baseball. There was no reason for them to go out at the trade deadline, try and get Jose Barrios, and give up an Emerson Hancock or a George Kirby, who's going to be an essential piece to the future. And I'm glad Jerry Dipoto stayed put. I think the trades he made were fine because it didn't dig into your future and the farm system you have. Because realistically, the Mariners are a year away from competing again. And they're competing right now. We should look at it like this. If the Mariners finish 10 games below 500 and struggle mightily for the next 2 months of the season and finish on a low note, we should still be happy the fact that they won together, made a run for it, because that builds that chemistry. One, they're winning together.
Yeah.
And two, it shows that the rebuild is working. And then in this offseason, you can go out, spend money. They have one of the lower payrolls in Major League Baseball. I think the 6th lowest, if I remember correctly. So they can go out this offseason and spend big on whatever they need. And that'll be fine. And they'll be ready to go in 2022 and then 2023. And that's where I think it's okay to be patient. We have to be patient. You can't jump the gun here. You can't all of a sudden be committed to a rebuild for 3 years and say, you know what? Let's shed all of it right here for a potential 1-game playoff. The Mariners lose that game and buy a bunch of rentals that all go to free agency, and you all of a sudden gave up a third of your farm system. Is that really worth it? Especially given the fact that you may not even make that wildcard game?
Tough job to pull off. Yep.
Probably not. So I'm happy that they are keeping stock in the future here, and they still made moves that are quality, that make them better right now, that can help them compete for a wildcard spot, but most importantly will help them compete moving on into the next few years. So I'm fine with it. I think they're fine. I understand why people are upset. I was disappointed when they traded Graveman, but at the end of the day, I think the players will grow past it, and I think it'll be better for us in the long run.
Absolutely. So in the past, we've had Blake Friars on. He was the Minot State play-by-play voice for the hockey teams, and
nice.
He's a big Seahawks fan. Making it too. Is there any interest that you have in the Seahawks? Do you pay some attention to them? I know you're mostly more on the Mariners and the Kraken.
I'm mostly
but the
baseball,
Seahawks?
but I'm a casual Seahawks fan.
Casual, okay, yep.
Obviously, I know all the drama that was happening with Russell Wilson the last couple of months and so forth. But no, I root for the Hawks. I do. I'm a Seahawks fan. I wouldn't say I know them as intensely as I do about the Mariners, but I root for them hard, and of course, would consider myself a 12.
There you go. Absolutely. And so there's just some of the Seattle sports talk with Max Tanzer. I know I'm a Colorado sports fan, but we got to share some insight from the other teams going on, and of course,
I could talk about the Mariners all day, so I appreciate you letting me.
That's a whole sports talk show for another day, but absolutely. But one more thing I forgot to mention before we head off here. The Sabre Dogs just eclipsed 41 wins in the regular season. That is a franchise record, beating their old number of 40 back in 2018. It could still go up too.
And I believe it will. We got a good ball club here.
Good, strong chance. So, last thing here, what does that feel, or what does that got to mean for you to be a part of that situation with the team?
Apologize for that.
No, you're good.
It's special. This is definitely a super fun team. Very good chemistry on the ball club. They all love each other. They all play for each other, have a lot of fun together. I think that's a big part. I think the chemistry on the ball club is one of the biggest reasons for their success, but also just the depth, I think. They've lost a lot of players. I don't think people have realized that over the last couple of weeks, particularly because they've been on the road, it seemed like, for the entire last month. But, yeah, just their ability to push in players into the 3, 4, 5 spot and have them still be able to contribute here. Obviously, second in the league in runs, right behind the Spearfish Sasquatch, who they just beat 2 out of 3. The pitching's been up and down a little bit. I know they've lost a lot of arms, and going down the stretch run here, it's going to be a little bit tight in terms of pitching. But I absolutely think this team has the capabilities of winning an Expedition League championship. They've been one of the most dynamic teams this entire summer. And again, their willingness to, or I should say, their passion and drive to win. And there's a lot of pride behind it, not just with the players, but with the coaching staff as well. I think that's what it takes to win an Expedition League championship. And I absolutely think they have that. We had a good ball club last year. They finished 27-25, a couple games behind the big sticks.
They would have been in the playoffs if they had went with that original format, but they didn't because of the, COVID happened and all the teams couldn't play. So yeah, they were in it, but of course didn't make it. But it's kind of tough.
And we had a good team last year, but I think this year
that too, for sure.
I think this year the offensive firepower has spoken for itself. They're incredibly smart on the bases, incredibly aggressive on the bases, so they're constantly putting pressure. I was talking to one of the opposing head coaches a couple weeks ago, and he said it's just so hard facing this Sabre Dogs team because even if you put a guy on, you walk him or you hit him with a pitch or something like that, give up a single, that's a triple because they're stealing second base, taking third on a wild pitch. Not just a wild pitch that gets to the backstop, but reading a dirt ball that's blocked by a catcher, able to anticipate that ball hitting the turf and getting a good jump on it on pitches that most base runners would not be able to take an extra base off of. And that's why, Alex Miklos preaches, if you're going to make an out or make a mistake, make an aggressive mistake. And that's been really what the Sabre Dogs have been living by the last 2 months. And it's worked incredibly well, obviously top of the league in stolen bases too. But it's more than just stolen bases. It's, again, their IQ on the base paths, taking advantage of mistakes, and pressure. All of a sudden, when a Sabre Dog's on first base, that pitcher's not thinking about the hitter anymore. They're thinking about that base runner, which, of course, will then inevitably lead to pitches over the heart of the plate, pitches up in the zone, and then obviously the bats can take advantage of it. Steven Moretto hit a 3-run bomb, whatever it may be. Ethan Moore and Moretto tied for the team lead in home runs. Yeah. Drew Miller's been swinging it very well. Unfortunately, Moore and Miller are leaving today, so those will be those will be two big losses to the lineup. But again, even without those two, you still have a very, very deep lineup. Jordan Williams swung the bat incredibly well yesterday. Was a home run away from the cycle, and in fact, almost left the yard twice over in Spearfish on Sunday. That's the second time he's had 3 legs of the cycle.
MSU guy too.
Absolutely,
by the way.
He's gonna get that cycle. I know it because he was a double away over in Casper 2 months ago.
Man.
And then yesterday he was a homer away. And I wanted that bad for him. But I think the depth, and Alex Miklos has done an incredible job recruiting and really organizing this roster to make sure it has depth at this point in the season, because that's the biggest struggle in summer ball. All these guys have to go home to their respective schools, go see their families, or even just want to or even just suffer an injury or whatever it may be. But Miklos has been able to organize this roster with so much depth to the point where there has been holes, but they've been able to get away with it. Yeah. Exactly, and they've been able to fill it up with someone quickly next, or it's the next guy off the bench, right? Drew Miller would be starting every single day on a lot of ball clubs. He didn't get to start every day on the Sabre Dogs team because there were so many options.
Sometimes you might need an off day.
Ethan Moore, same story. Both of those guys, really good bats. They didn't get to start every day because there was just so many options. We have a deep outfield. At one point, what was it? It was Alan Greer, Caden Schwabe, Jordan Williams. You could throw Drew Miller out there as well. I'm probably forgetting a couple other names.
Interchangeable positions too. Yep, that's a great point you mentioned.
And just the deepness, overall in the organization has been really important to their success.
Absolutely. Well, I was just telling Jeremy, this is the best Sabre Dogs team we've seen in franchise history, and we're right in the thick of things. And Max, you see it firsthand, being the play-by-play guy. I see you up there kind of sitting close by the press box, but you're there, you're finding ways to get creative. So I see the work you're doing a great job, man. We thank you for being on the show today and, talking Sabre Dogs, talking all about you with Ithaca College, Seattle Pro Sports Talk, you're a big Seattle fan yourself. And, thank you for being on, and hopefully have you on in the future.
No doubt about that. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure, Cole.
Absolutely. Well, Minot sports fans, you just heard Max Tanzer. He is the play-by-play voice of the Souris Valley Sabre Dogs, also the Expedition League Broadcaster of the Year. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this one, and we'll be right back after this quick message.
Welcome to KMSU TV and radio. You might be asking, what is KMSU? It is the brand name for the MSU Broadcasting Department, home to the many young and aspiring communication majors here at Minot State University. When joining KMSU, there will be many different opportunities to get involved. Students will get a hands-on learning experience in lots of future career fields, like the production of content, being a leader in public relations, operating social media, or even writing and journalism. KMSU is also home to the local public access channel, where students can produce the weekly campus TV show and talk on live radio. From us here at KMSU, we hope to see you along the way.
And there you have it, Minot sports fans. Another interview conducted with one of the many Souris Valley Sabre Dogs interns. This time we got the chance. He actually reached out to me wanting to be on the podcast and also get a tour of our studios here on the Minot State campus from Ithaca College, Max Tanzer. Again, I mentioned him. He's the play-by-play voice of the Souris Valley Sabre Dogs. You can catch him in all of the Souris Valley Sabre Dogs broadcasts on YouTube, live in-game coverage, post-game interviews with players, and the stream also produced by Ballard Ackaway. Really a phenomenal job to the rest of the Sabre Dogs interns. They really do a fantastic job at putting on a wonderful game day experience for fans of all ages. And if you've seen some of these Sabre Dogs games, you'll notice on the field they have all these cool promotional events, most likely sponsored by someone or a group, most notably a business, to rack in all of that money. But like the Four Bears dice roll, the kids car race, if you've been to a game, you'll know what I'm talking about. The fan promotional events, getting the fans involved. It's a cool experience. But even Max said, getting creative, showing those off on the broadcast, hey, why not? It's going to give you lots more traction. And I agree with him. And the work environment with the Sabre Dogs, with all the interns, they're great and they're fun to work with. I'm not an intern. I worked for the team last year as a stats person, but take Max's word for it, because I see it firsthand too. It's a great environment they got going on during game day. And continuing on with Max, he is so talented, so gifted in his broadcasting routine. It's like he was destined for this opportunity to be a broadcaster in the sport of baseball. His passion, love for the game. He's very knowledgeable at it too. And Minot sports fans, don't be surprised if one day we see him working with a big league team anywhere in Major League Baseball. And so let's treasure him while we still have Max here in town. Sabre Dogs just rounding out the regular season. This is, in fact, their best regular season ever in franchise history. So they're going into a great spot heading into the postseason. So treasure him while you can, Minot sports fans. If you can't make it to the game, hit up the Sabre Dogs on YouTube. Max has you covered for everything. But Minot sports fans, that is going to do it for episode 4 of the 2021 Summer Series. We've been having a lot of guests reach out wanting to be on the pod, and that's a good thing. So if you guys ever want to be on here, if you're an athlete or working somewhere in the Minot sports world, like a PA announcer, even a stats person, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, if you have something involved with a Minot sports team or what have you, please, if you want to be on the pod, feel free to reach out. And we've been getting quite a few of those messages on social media or just in person, whatever. But Minot sports fans, that will do it. We'll get back to talking regularly on Minot sports unless we have another guest come in, but I'm going to try to make sure that there will be some more local sports talk here on the Minot Sports Podcast. Once again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening each and every episode. I am your host, Cole Clementich, Jr. in the Minot State Broadcasting and Professional Communications Department, KMSU. Check out them on social media. Thanks goes out to our sponsors as well, Joshua Strong and Peyton Bartsch Photography. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram. Catch the podcast also on social media. Links in the description below, or handles, social media handles. We'll include that as well. And that's going to be it, Minot sports fans. Thank you again. I'll talk to you later. stay safe and healthy out there, and take care.